This is the Bottom Line Podcast. I'm Jimmy Finizzi alongside Neil Villapiano. We hope you're doing well. As always, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to listen to us. We really do appreciate it. Before we get started, as always, questions, opinions, Twitter at BottomLineWMCX, at the NVP Show, and on Instagram at BottomLineWMCX, hashtag BottomLine. Leave a voice message on the Anchor app or at anchor.fm. And as always, if you're watching on YouTube, please leave a like and a comment down below. Helps out tremendously. And please make sure you subscribe, as well as on Apple, Google, and Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Just include my first name, Jimmy, when searching for this podcast. First of all, Neil, once again, a brand new week. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Didn't have the world's greatest weekend. More or less dealing with a lot of things mentally. I think it was a rough weekend for me. I don't like to be called things that aren't true about me. So I will.
I feel that.
I try to keep the personal stuff out of this, but I've just felt the need to say so. So I just I didn't have a great day yesterday. Really haven't been feeling myself over the last 24 hours or so. After some comments were made about me that aren't factually correct. So it was difficult. I'm feeling better today. Not 100%, but it doesn't stop me from being able to come on here and talk about sports, which is something that I enjoy doing. So I'm doing better, not 100%, but I'll continue to get better as the week progresses. So
there you go. And hey, I got news for anybody out there. If you got anything to say about my man right here, you got to get through me, because there ain't no way in hell I'm letting you get away with that. And I am dead serious about that. There ain't no way in hell I am letting anybody get away with saying anything bad about you. And you know me far too well that I will go out of my way to defend you. Anytime. But anyway, enough negativity. We're not all about that here on this podcast, except for one team in particular, which we'll get into in a little bit with today's conversation. And today, coming at you on August 24th, 2020, and actually a bit of a little bit of positivity to start off before we get into what we want to talk about. Neil, I'm sure you saw this on our Instagram and Twitter. We are officially now, outside of this episode at least, we are 9 episodes away from 200 episodes. I mean, it truly is really, really hard to believe. And again, we can't stress enough how incredibly thankful we are for all of your support. We would not be this far if it was not for everybody out there who has supported us the entire way through. Again, whether you've been listening 3 years ago, back in 2017, when it was just little old me, or if you're new and just joining us, welcome. And we can't thank you enough for all of your support. It really does mean a lot. And stay tuned. We might have a little something special planned for when we reach 200 episodes. We're still working out the details, but stay tuned for an announcement on that real soon. But not 9 episodes away. I really can't believe it. And if you want to check out any past episodes of this podcast, go to yourlisten.com. You can go to SoundCloud, Mixcloud. They're all on there. Just, you know the deal. Search Bottom Line Podcast, include my first name, Jimmy, and you will find all past episodes from there. So anyway, today is NBA playoff talk. I know it is a red hot subject right now, especially for a couple of teams in particular. And we're going to start off with the Mavericks and Clippers series, because this has to be the most intriguing series. And Neil, I can't believe I'm saying this, I've actually watched start to finish. I actually have watched this series start to finish. I was intrigued by this series because these are two great and talented teams. Obviously, with the Clippers, you have Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, Patrick Beverley, all those guys. But with the Mavericks, you got Doncic, who we'll talk about more in a little bit. You got Porzingis. You got a talented young group who is destined to win a championship. If not this year, because I think they have the potential to this year, if they can somehow sneak by the Clippers, if they can do it. But if not, give them a year or two, and they just might win an NBA championship or two. But hey, that's another discussion for another day. But this series is interesting. As we stand right now, it is tied at 2 games apiece. Game 5 is tomorrow night, August 25th, 2020 at 9 p.m. So if you want to watch that, I know I will be. You're definitely going to want to stay tuned who will take over the lead. At this point, it's a best of 3 series. But one player in particular has really stood out to me, especially in Game 4, and that would happen to be Luka Doncic. Now, for this man, in case you don't know, a little bit of a scare with Luka Doncic. He went down, I believe what was it, Game 2 or 3 he went down with that ankle injury? It was Game 3? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he goes down in Game 3 with that very scary ankle injury. He's listed as questionable for Game 4. And then Game 4, it's officially announced. He comes in and, well, let's face it, this kid is on elite status right now. He notched a triple-double, racking up 43 points, 17 rebounds, and 13 assists, including the game-winning buzzer beater in overtime. And once I saw what this kid is capable of doing, especially come postseason time, I know his career is still young, but this kid is unbelievable. I mean, if he keeps up the way he's playing right now, if he keeps this up, he might not be one of the best players to put on a Dallas Mavericks uniform. He might be one of the best players to put on an NBA uniform, period, if he keeps this up. That is how special this kid is. Again, I know his career is young, but based on what I've seen so far from this kid, he is absolutely unbelievable. And with his help and with Porzingis, like I said, if the Dallas Mavericks can somehow sneak by the Clippers, who we'll get into more in a little bit, if they can somehow sneak by this team, they might have a chance to win it all this season. And I'm not exaggerating. I really, really think that.
So a couple things. One, talking about Luka Doncic, I recall I actually was in person at the draft, in his rookie year, and I remember sitting there and everybody was talking about Luka Doncic because, usually when it comes to talented and, we'll call it like it is, white European players that are available in the draft every year, you're a little bit skeptical because the typical stereotype for a lot of white European players is that they're soft and that they can't compete at the NBA level.
Right.
They can't keep up with the physicality, which I don't think there is that much physicality in the NBA. Not like it was in the 80s and the 90s. I mean, it's not. I think it's a lot less than people want to say it is. But anyway, Luka Doncic was an interesting player. He had really dominated at Real Madrid, their basketball team. I believe he was the European Player of the Year or MVP, at least I think once or twice. And he was, clearly this kid, from the time he was about 14, 15 years old, a lot of people could see that there was something special about him. But, we didn't know from the NBA standpoint as an American fan, we didn't know what was to come. We didn't see him play that much. He didn't play basketball in the United States like in college or something. No, he came over from Europe and was ready to go. And I remember the Suns took DeAndre Ayton. And then I think, the Hawks ended up originally taking Luka Doncic. But
then they got Trae Young.
But then they flipped that because they made a deal with the Mavericks. And I think there was a pick or two that was involved in that deal, but they swapped players. So Trae Young went to Atlanta and Luka Doncic went to Dallas. I don't think that the Hawks are sitting there regretting getting Trae Young because Trae Young is a tremendous talent as a point guard, a scoring guard, a guy who can also dish it out. So, I think that it worked out for both teams. I think this was a good deal that, considering the pieces that both guys have, I think they were put into the right team. They were put into the right place, right time. It's going to take a little bit longer with Trae Young to really find out whether or not he is, capable of leading this Hawks team to being an eventual playoff and hopefully championship contender in the near future. It's a little bit more obvious with Luka Doncic, and I think the way you saw him play in Game 4 really, really proved that. What was interesting going into it is that just maybe 2 or 3 minutes prior to tip-off, the Mavericks announced that Porzingis, due to a sore knee, was out. So my immediate reaction was, well, Luka's going to have to really play his ass off in order for the Mavericks to even have a shot in this game.
And boy, did he ever.
Because Porzingis, and I feel like people are not giving him enough credit, has been dominant in this playoff round with the Dallas Mavericks. He's done very well since he got to Dallas, and he's showcasing the talented player that we all saw when he was with the Knicks, and now he's on a competitive, very close to being championship team. He's absolutely going out. You remember Luka had to leave Game 3, and Porzingis stepped in and did as best he could, and I believe they ended up winning Game 3. I think. I can't remember.
The Clippers won Game 3. The Clippers won Game 3 because they had a 2-1 series lead, and with the win in Game 4, Dallas tied the series.
Right, and Porzingis still balled out and was tremendous. And I'm still waiting for both Luka and Porzingis to really be on the court together, fully healthy, and maybe that could be the case. I know that Porzingis' status as of now is still undetermined. They're not sure yet. We'll know probably either before the game tomorrow or just before the game starts. I think it's I believe it's a game time decision. But another guy that I think stepped up in Game 4, and also has just stepped up a bunch is Seth Curry, who just turned the age of 30, I believe, 2 days ago. And he has really, really played his butt off. He has done a tremendous job. He's been hitting his shots, particularly the three-point shot, and I'm sure he learned a lot from his brother Steph. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
But Seth Curry has always been a solid, guard. He's always been a solid player in his career. It's only because his brother is Steph Curry that he will constantly get overshadowed. Also, Seth Curry
doesn't get nearly as much attention as Steph.
Exactly, and I think Seth Curry has, in many ways, he's played on a lot of teams that just haven't been good. So that gives people another reason to not pay attention to him. But now that he's on a team like the Mavericks, who's on the rise, and he's really playing well, he had 15 points, obviously 1 board and 1 assist in 31 minutes, but he still played very well and was a key contributor like other guys. I also thought Maxi Kleber, who, again, he only dropped 7 points. I thought he did well, in replace for Porzingis, at least for that game. Boban did pretty well coming off the bench. But obviously the man of the hour was Luka Doncic. There was no question about it. He willed his team to that game, to that victory. And, look, the Clippers had a chance to win it at the end there in regulation, and they just rimmed out. So that was unfortunate. But when the Clippers took a 133 to 132 lead with just seconds left, I knew obviously the ball was going to go to Luka Doncic. I just didn't know how it was going to go. Because at that point, you didn't need a 3. You could have obviously driven it to the lane and tried to get fouled or look for a layup, But clearly Luka wanted the ball, and he clearly was looking to try to drain a 3. The criticism that we've been hearing over the last, 12 hours or so has been, why did Kawhi Leonard switch off Luka and go guard Maxi Kleber down low and leave Reggie Jackson one-on-one versus Luka Doncic? And I mean, there is subject for criticism because we know Kawhi to be arguably the best defensive player in the NBA. Paul George is no slouch either when it comes to playing defense. But, I don't think it's fair to say that, because if Luka had missed that shot and the Mavericks lost, we wouldn't be talking about this today. We certainly wouldn't be discussing whether or not it was the right decision. Every NBA player is capable of playing defense, okay? Sometimes the guy just throws up a shot and it just happens to go in. I saw that several times in the Brooklyn Nets-Toronto Raptors series where literally, Fred VanVleet just threw up a shot and it went in. And at some points there's nothing
Neil, I'm terribly sorry. I feel like an absolute ass for picking your Nets in 6 games.
Well, we can discuss that.
I'm so sorry.
It's fine. The team.
But here's the thing, though. Like you told me, Toronto's a damn good team even without Kawhi, and the Nets really weren't expected to be in this position in the first place. So I guess in a way it's okay, but I still feel like an idiot.
The Nets basically had a street yard team playing in the playoffs. And that's no disrespect. It's just reality. You look at the fact that you had all of your main guys, for the most part, either were hurt and couldn't play or opted out.
Right.
So the Nets had a lot of work to do, and you have to give Jacques Vaughn where credit is due because he did a tremendous job. 7-3 in his 10 games that he coached with the Nets, in the regular season. Obviously, it would have been nice to see the Nets not only win a game, but at least, compete. And I think that game 2 loss was the one that they should have had. They were winning most of the game. And it doesn't help that Joe Harris also left the bubble in the middle of the series. And again, I hope whatever is the reason behind it, I hope everything is okay, because that kind of came out of nowhere when that was announced. But yeah, the Nets obviously now, technically speaking, for right now, the KD-Kyrie era has officially begun. Lot of questions still left to be answered. I do think though that Karis LeVert has cemented himself as that third star. The Nets don't need to go out. They literally don't have to do anything except bring everybody back, including the guys who had playing in the bubble. Because if you have all those guys playing together the way they've been playing, with the additions of KD, Kyrie, Spencer Dinwiddie, all those guys, you have a pretty good team and a pretty deep team in the Eastern Conference. So
absolutely.
I don't think changes with the players themselves need to be made. I think that Jacques Vaughn, more than anybody, should be given a very, very strong look as the head coach of this team in the future. I know, obviously, today it was reported from The Athletic that the Nets are going to heavily go after Greg Popovich. If it happens, cool. I think it would be great. I really do, because Pop is a no-nonsense guy, and he's not going to allow the personalities of guys like, KD and Kyrie to screw everything up.
Right.
But I doubt that Pop really wants to leave San Antonio. He's been there for 30-plus years in so many different roles. I would be surprised, but I think Jacques Vaughn has to be the number one guy you look at, because he has influenced that Nets team so much, and he has given people, and all the players say that they love him. He's been very open about, the civil rights, and he was talking about voting and talking about things other than basketball that are of a point right now. And I give him a lot of credit. Obviously he is, black, and I think that more black coaches should be given an opportunity in the NBA. And I think Jacques Vaughn, albeit he wasn't great in Orlando, I think has done a bang-up job with what the Nets gave him
I agree.
In the bubble. And I think, getting wins over the Bucks and the Clippers, that wasn't a fluke. That, they played hard. They wanted to win those games. And they tried to, they were one of the bigger stories of the bubble, other than maybe you would obviously say the undefeated Phoenix Suns, who didn't even make the playoffs and still went undefeated. But Jacques Vaughn did a great job. I really am a huge supporter of him. I really want him to be the head coach of this team. But if he doesn't, I would at least like him to stay on as an assistant, because I'm really, really a huge believer in Jacques Vaughn, that he is a man's coach. He is a guy that treats these guys like men, even if they may not act like it. And he is not a get-in-your-face type of coach. He's a man that, that is a calming presence. He likes to, have fun with the players. He likes to be loose. He likes to keep it fun. And I think that that's a good type of culture to have. And I think that the Nets are going to give him a serious consideration. And I hope that if at the end of the day, he's the guy that, you feel comfortable with, I hope that's the case. But again, KD and Kyrie have so much say in this, and they didn't really play at all with Jacques Vaughn. I don't know what type of relationship they have with him, but we'll see. But going back, let me, we went way off topic here, but let me go back.
It's okay. No. That was my bad. That was my bad.
No, it's fine. Let me go back to this whole game. Luka Doncic had ice water in his veins. He was stone cold. He was not going to allow the Mavericks to lose that game. And what he did by knocking down that shot is he made everybody believers that, the Clippers could very well lose this series if they don't step it up. Paul George had 9 points yesterday. And I know that he has never been a big point guy in the postseason.
Yeah, I think Stephen A. Smith called the police about Paul George, saying like, where is he? Where is he? Like he's nowhere to be found. And I'm sorry, you can't win games when one of your best players is shooting 21% and only has 9 points. You can't win that way. I'm sorry.
I mean, the thing that I will say, though, is that Paul George does play defense. He set up a bunch of other guys to score, and the Clippers still nearly won the game. And if they had won,
Yeah.
we would talk about Paul George having only 9 points, but we would just talk about the fact that Kawhi carried the team. Look, and Sweet Lou Williams had 36 points last night off the bench. So, look, the Clippers are also not fully healthy. Pat Bev is still dealing with an injury. Reggie Jackson, albeit I don't blame him for what happened with Luka Doncic. Okay, he did everything he could. Also, he got switched on to him. There isn't much that he can do about it. He can't just leave him wide open. So I don't blame Reggie Jackson. I also wanted to give Montrezl Harrell some props for going up to Luka before the game and talking out about what happened after game one, where they got into a heated battle about, Lucas told Montrezl to stop flopping, and it got into this very big argument. I think that was good. But Paul George is still a phenomenal talent. He really is. And I think that he understands that he doesn't have to score 30-plus points a game for this team to win. And the fact that we're going to put so much of the blame on Paul George for not only scoring only 9 points, but also for not recognizing that Kawhi switched off,
Yeah.
It's like, you give him way too much crap unnecessarily. It's not his fault. Does Paul George need to score a little bit more? Yeah, I would have, even just putting up, 20 points would have been fine. I'm not saying that Paul George has to drop 30, 35 like Kawhi
No,
did.
nobody's saying that. Because
Kawhi is a very consistent shooter. But to say that Paul George is just an awful playoff performer, I think is a little bit unfair.
No,
we have to remember
he's not.
Paul George has had, not his great moments. Obviously last year getting waved goodbye by Damian Lillard after burying a 3 over him to win the series, obviously. But Paul George still has a lot to prove. And here's the other thing, and this is really for Clippers fans only. The series is tied. You're not down 3-0. You're not down even 3-2. The series is tied. You could easily go into game 5, dominate from start to finish, win by 15, and we will stop talking about the Mavericks and Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis, Seth Curry, and all those. We'll just stop talking about it, because then we'll say, I think now the Clippers are going to close it out. But I will say that if it gets to 3-2 Dallas, I really would have to I'd have to watch the game and see how Paul George, Kawhi, and those guys play, because at that point, you have to start asking some serious questions. I think Doc Rivers said last night that there wasn't that much emotion from his team. They checked out.
Which is absolutely scary coming from a coach like him. When he says that, you have an issue.
Well, I think this is a classic. The Clippers are underestimating the Mavericks, and particularly Luka Doncic. And I think that they thought that they would win this series in 4 or 5 and not have an issue. And, look, the Clippers have a lot of pressure because they're the second, quote unquote, second best team in the Western Conference. Everybody says other than the Lakers, they have as just as good of a chance in the West. If they get knocked out in the first round, that really has to, that's going to be a pretty big embarrassment. And I don't know if major changes are going to have to be made, whether it's in the coaching staff or some of the other players on this team, whatever you want to say. I don't know. But again, it's 2-2. It's not 3-2. And guess what? And I'll say it again, if Luka didn't make that 3 last night, it's 3-1 LA. And we're not even talking about this. So everybody just relax, okay? Great players are going to have moments like that, particularly in the playoffs. That was Luka's time to shine. Luka was on a mission, and he proved it, and he drained a big shot. And Luka is a very likable player. He's not a guy that thinks he's better than he actually is. He plays with a chip on his shoulder. He had a lot to prove. He was dealing with an injury. He pushed through it. He balled out. And, that's just how it is. So Luka had a great game, and game 5 is going to be the pivotal one. It's going to be the one that I think will really determine who comes out of this series. Could I see this going 7? Yeah. Also, I just want to say that I had the Clippers winning this series in 6 because I knew.
I had them in 7.
I had them in 6.
Okay.
And I knew this series was going to go almost the distance because I knew the Mavericks would compete. I knew Luka, with his first chance in the playoffs, was going to do what he could. And again, there's no home court advantage. There's no crowds. So
actually, I take that back, Neil. I apologize. I also had the Clippers in 6. I apologize.
That's fine. But again, bottom line is the fact that Luka, that was his game to win. He got the opportunity and he took advantage of it and won the game for the Mavericks. This has been a great series, probably the most entertaining series of any of the first rounds that we've seen. And we've seen a couple sweeps already and everything. And we know game 4 between LA and Portland is later on tonight. And we know, for all we know, Dame could drop 60 and the series could be tied at 2 in that one. We don't know.
Yep.
It could happen. I don't doubt it because Dame just continues to play well. Or you could have a game like last night between Denver and Utah, where both Donovan Mitchell and Jamal Murray each dropped 50.
Who, by the way, went off for 50 points again.
Yeah, and
my goodness.
He's the third player in NBA history other than Allen Iverson and Michael Jordan to have multiple 60-point games in one playoff.
Yep.
That's incredible. Not 60, 50 points in the end. And that's incredible because Donovan Mitchell is that good of a player.
Some pretty elite company right there, too.
He doesn't get enough credit because he plays in Utah. That's the single biggest reason. But now they're up 3-1, and they're going to look to try to end this series. And they got a really good shot at doing it in Game 5. But bottom line with this whole thing we're talking about with Luka Doncic, this kid can flat out play. This kid was born to be an NBA star. You can see it. He thrives. He thrives with pressure. The bigger the game, the more pressure he gets, the better this kid plays. And this kid is relentless. And I'll tell you this right now. If Porzingis is healthy and ready to go for Game 5 and starts playing the way he's been playing, along with Luka, I do like my chances with Dallas taking the next 2 games.
I 100% agree with you.
They're playing on a high, and they have a lot of the momentum, and there's no home court advantage. So that momentum is going to stay that way unless the Clippers can turn it around. And I think that some changes are going to have to be made with the Clippers. I think Kawhi is going to probably have to guard Luka a lot more. I think now, since he's been criticized by us and everyone else over the last 12, 13 hours, I think he's going to, have to step up in many different ways. And I think, some other guys on this team got to step up. I think Zubac, even though he had 15 points, I think he's got to be more of a force down low. Landry Shamit's been playing pretty well. Sweet Lou just continued to ball out the way he's been balling out. I don't know if you make a change and maybe put Lou Will in the starting 5. I mean, Lou Will is obviously the best 6th man in the NBA. There's no question. But other guys, like particularly Montrezl Harrell, you got to play better. You got to start really helping. You can't just allow Kawhi to do everything. Because he'll win you some games doing it all by himself. But if you want to win a championship, you got to have 3, 4, 5 guys that are willing to do anything and everything to try to win that game and try to and help out and play team basketball. Because that's how you win an NBA championship. Regardless of whether the fact that we have now, these guys with all this collusion and all these, stacked teams or whatever, you still got to play team basketball in order to win a championship. This is a team sport, not an individual sport. So Clippers got to play more like a team. The Mavericks have been doing that. They've been playing to their identity. And if the Clippers don't get it going and can't slow down, they're not going to stop Luka, but slow him down. If they don't do that, the Mavericks got this series in the bag. So we'll see. We'll see. But Game 5 is the pivotal game. It's the game that's really going to find out who really wants this series and who doesn't.
100% agree. I cannot argue with that. But bottom line is the Mavericks really have all the momentum right now. And bottom line with the Clippers is I am worried. I am worried about them, but I am not hitting the panic button as of yet. If they lose Game 5 and Dallas absolutely dominates them in Game 5, then okay, then there's cause for legitimate concern. But I'm not hitting a panic button yet for the Clippers, but I am a little bit worried about them right now. Who I am worried about is Philadelphia. Because boy, oh boy. I mean, what the hell happened? What the hell happened? I mean, okay, so they get swept by the Celtics. Okay, Boston's a really good team. Obviously, Kemba Walker and Jason Tatum were obviously the main stars for Boston in that entire series. Those two absolutely, their chemistry is just unbelievable. There is absolutely no denying that. But this ain't about the Celtics because we all know how good they are. And by the way, they will now move on to face the Toronto Raptors in the second round of the playoffs. That should be a really, really good series, by the way. But what the hell happened to Philadelphia? I mean, there's going to have to be a lot, and I mean a lot, of wholesale changes. I mean, Brett Brown, I'm sorry, he needs to go. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm all for giving guys other chances, but Brett Brown, again, you are not Greg Popovich. Your system clearly does not work with these players, especially for Joel Embiid and especially for Ben Simmons, who still cannot develop a freaking jump shot. Okay, so stop trying to be Greg Popovich. Find your own system. But I'm sorry, Brett Brown is, in my opinion, he's the first person that needs to go. I'm sorry. His system does not work. Joel Embiid, I mean, I've run out of things to say about him at this point. I think he's solid, but he just needs to stop being such a baby, man. I mean, really. I mean, when was the last time we saw Joel Embiid have any ounce of competitive fire in him? Was, well, let me take that back. I mean, competitive, but you saw he wanted to get revenge after Toronto eliminated them last season when Kawhi Leonard obviously hit that shot that bounced 4 times and went in. And what was Joel Embiid doing? Crying to his girlfriend. Okay? So I get it, he was hurt, but you saw from him he wanted revenge. I'm like, oh my goodness, okay, he might actually be onto something. We might actually see a dominant Joel Embiid. Mm-hmm. I don't want to go as far as say he was dominant. I mean, I haven't watched enough of them to know that for sure. But he's a solid player. He is. I'm not denying that. But the cast around him, man, is just like, who the hell are these guys? Who are they? I mean, again, I'm saying that because I haven't watched enough of the team. So don't go, before you jump me, I haven't watched them enough to know who they are. Outside of Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. But, Neil, what the hell happened? I mean, they showed little to no life against, let's face it, again, a very, very good Boston Celtics team. But all we're asking is that you at least try to be competitive. Just like with the Nets in Toronto, can you at least try? The Sixers didn't even try. Now, I'm not blaming it all on Brett Brown. It's obviously not all his fault. The players have to do better. But I'm sorry, their defense was absolutely porous. They barely showed up half the time, and half the guys can't shoot. They can't shoot, and they can't block shots. So, bottom line for me is, Philadelphia, y'all need some wholesale changes, because with the way your team is right now, I'm sorry, you are light years away from getting anywhere close to an NBA Finals. I'm sorry. That's just how I see it.
So, looking at the Philadelphia 76ers, they have one of the more talented overall teams in the National Basketball Association. They have, obviously, Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. They added Tobias Harris. Josh Richardson they got from Miami in the sign and trade for Jimmy Butler. They brought in Al Horford, which, I mean, he was brought there to help with the scoring. And to be honest with you, I think the game has passed him. I think his age is certainly getting to him. So I think that was not the greatest move by the 76ers to get him. I thought that, Shake Milton and Alec Burks, both, very solid guards, played well. Matthias Thybulle, I wish that they would play him more, but I don't know. Maybe, I think he's a rookie, so I know that he's got time, but still, I would have liked to have seen that. But when Ben Simmons went down, and I'm not using this as the main reason why the 76ers got bounced and got, destroyed the way that they did. But when Ben Simmons went down, and basically they said that even if the 76ers went far in the playoffs, that he wasn't going to play. That took a lot of the heart out of the Philadelphia 76ers, the belief that they could actually go far. And I think also the pressure then fell even more on Joel Embiid. And you saw he put up 25-plus points in all 4 games, including 30 points last night.
Right.
He had to put up 30 just so that the 76ers didn't get blown out. They lost by 4. So Joel Embiid gets criticized a lot because of his attitude and because of his personality. People want him to be somebody that he isn't. And that's really the annoying thing. Joel Embiid is incredibly talented. And when he turns it on, and I think he did turn it on in this series, he could be a dominant player. The Celtics didn't have anybody that slowed him down. If they did, he wouldn't have dropped 30 last night or 26 or 24. He wouldn't have done that. The problem is that the 76ers relied way too heavily on Embiid. They wanted Embiid to literally carry them through these playoffs.
And by the way, I don't mean to cut you off. I apologize. But you know what that also tells me about them? Is that this whole process thing is a wash. I mean, throughout this whole process thing, they went a combined 47 and 199. They had nearly 200 losses during the whole process thing. So what does that tell you? It tells you a whole damn lot to me.
Well, it tells you one thing and one thing only, is that the Sixers don't need to trade Embiid or Ben Simmons or anybody on this team. You said wholesale changes. There isn't that much change that needs to be made. The only change is to remove Brett Brown as head coach. That is
that I agree with. Yes, that
Brett Brown, what he failed to do more than anything else is to take the players that he had and devise a system that was beneficial to them. Is Ben Simmons trying to get a jump shot? Yeah, you can see him working on it. He's still getting it. He's still incredibly young, okay? So let's give him a little bit of a break here. Joel Embiid is still very, very young as well, okay? He hasn't even fully reached the prime of his career. Neither one of those two stars have, okay? Neither one of these two guys have reached their full potential yet, in my opinion. Brett Brown was a Greg Popovich disciple and decided that because Greg Popovich's system works so well, that he was going to basically take said same system and implement it to what he had in Philadelphia. The issue is that Greg Popovich devised the system that he ran based on the players that he had. And that's what it worked out. The mark of a great coach is a coach that can see the players that you have and say, okay, I need to devise a game plan that will fully allow these players to play at their highest potential. Yep. And that's what Brett Brown, for the many years that he was the coach of this team, even the last 2-3 years, failed to do. And one quote that sticks out to me more than any was Josh Richardson's quotes after losing Game 4, saying, Brett Brown is a great guy. You know, he's a good person to be around, but he needs to hold himself more accountable. There was also a comment that last night on Inside the NBA that Charles Barkley made that I wanted to say as well. And let me start with the Josh Richardson thing. I think Josh Richardson is somewhat correct on this. I think Brett Brown at times did not put enough blame on himself for not, giving this 76ers team a game plan that was really capable of, being successful with the team that you have.
Right.
That being said, I will say what Charles Barkley said last night. He said, when does it get to the point that the player has to also have accountability, where the player has to say, you know what, I need to step up my game. I need to, we need to play better as a team. And until the 76ers players realize that, they're going to continue to have issues, even if they bring in a much more qualified coach. But you need to bring in a coach who will have his own system and also will get this team to play team basketball. If they can do that, they will have a lot more success and get out of the first round of the playoffs. And for all we know, go very far in the postseason, something that we at this point are just waiting for that to happen. And also, I think it is fair to say that if Ben Simmons had been healthy and was playing, maybe this series would have gone 5 or 6. The 76ers certainly would have won a game or two because I think Ben Simmons is the heart of that team, whether people want to agree with that or not. He is their best player. He is their franchise player. You build that team around him. And that's just how it goes. Having a big man is great, and Joel Embiid is a great big man, but that's not how the game is nowadays. The game is about the perimeter three-point shooting contest. It's been that way.
You don't build your team around big men. It doesn't work like that.
Exactly. You don't build your team around big men. This isn't the 90s, unfortunately. You can't build it around someone like that. Right. Also, I want people to stop saying, because I'm going to go to bat for Joel Embiid here. Stop trying to make Joel Embiid somebody that he's not. Is he Shaq? No. Okay?
No.
He's his own player. He can still dominate. How does dropping 30 points last night not considered he dominated? The problem is that Shaq won. Shaq won a lot. He was dominant, and he also won a lot. He won championships.
Right.
But let's call it like it is. Shaq won championships with other great players. He had Kobe, which, it is obviously August 24th, so it's 8/24. And I believe yesterday was Kobe Bryant's birthday. He would have been
42 years young.
42 years young. It's gone way too soon. But, Shaq had Kobe, and then he went to the Miami Heat, and he had Dwayne Wade.
Yep.
And that's how he won championships. He didn't win championships when he was in Orlando. Could he have? Absolutely. But he also had Penny Hardaway, which, is a tremendous player on his own. Joel Embiid is Joel Embiid. He is a dominant big man who can shoot from the outside, who can play defense, and can be a dominant force. Is he immature? Yeah, but so is every other person his age. That's just how it goes.
That's
People need
true,
to understand that. Okay? Does Joel Embiid need to mature more? Without a doubt. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be like, change the way he perceives himself off the court. It's about understanding that the NBA game is a team sport. You got to be more of a team player. So if that means Joel Embiid starts only getting 15 points a game and 10 rebounds and 6 assists, but the 76ers are winning championship after championship, not a damn person is going to care, because guess what? He's winning championships. He's being respected more. That's what you have to do. So who do I think should be the 76ers head coach? I'm sure that's the next question, because I've already heard that most likely that the 76ers are going to part ways with Brett Brown, and I think that's the right choice.
And they should.
A couple years too late, but it's the right choice.
Right,
People say, oh, what about Jay Wright, the coach of Villanova? No, Jay Wright is a college coach. He is not an NBA coach. We're not doing this. Jay Wright, he's got a good thing going in Villanova. Why would he want to leave? The only reason he would want to leave is the money. That's the only reason he would want to leave Villanova, but he's not going to. So you have guys out there, guys that we've mentioned before about other head coaching jobs. You have Jason Kidd. You have Tyronn Lue. You have other guys like that. Maybe
Mike Woodson.
Mike Woodson.
Oh wait, no. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of somebody else. I apologize.
Mike Woodson's an assistant now with the Knicks.
Right. Yes.
Thibodeau, so he's out there.
I'm sorry.
Unless the Sixers ask, and maybe Mike Woodson would want to do it. I doubt it, but anyway. You need to bring in a coach that is a guy that is not going to deal with that is going to deal with this BS, and he's just not going to let it phase him. And he has a system that actually works. He evaluates the team he has in front of him and says, okay, what type of system, what type of offense and defense can we run that's really going to maximize the players that we have on this team?
Right.
Boom. There. They don't have to make any player changes, okay? They really don't. They're too good of a team. They have a good team. They have a team that's capable of going to win a championship. They just didn't have the right coach. They kept Brett Brown way too long, and this is the punishment that they're getting. And the problem is that both Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid are getting very, very close to getting those max contracts. They need to get this done. And what I mean get this done. They need to get deep in the playoffs and maybe even win a championship before this gets to the point. Because you may not have the money to keep both of these guys. You may have to let one of these guys go. But you got it. I'm sorry. You got to get it done. You got to get it done. I don't know who would be the right fit for the 76ers. I really don't. But whoever it is, he better have a system that is going to maximize these players' abilities and is going to not allow the personalities of this team to interfere with the team being a successful championship-level team. So that's what I want to see. The 76ers have enough talent to go win a championship. They just need to become a better overall team with a much better coach.
Yep, absolutely. And like you said, he should have been gone a couple of years ago. But as far as the talks of letting him go, it is the right thing to do, because again, his system does not work, and it's been a long time coming. And I agree that Brett Brown needs to go. So on that note, that's the bottom line, and that'll wrap it up for this episode of the Bottom Line Podcast. If you have any thoughts on anything we discussed, and if you have thoughts on who should be the next coach of the Philadelphia 76ers, and the NBA playoffs. Let us know on Twitter at BottomLineWMCX, at the MVP Show, and on Instagram at BottomLineWMCX, hashtag BottomLine. Voice message, Anchor.fm, or the app. You know the deal there. And please make sure you subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and leave a like and a comment down below with your own thoughts. It helps us tremendously. And please make sure you also subscribe on Apple, Google, and Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Just please include my first name, Jimmy, when searching for this podcast. Coming up in the next episode, we will recap an actually very amazing Champions League final, which I actually sat down and watched, as shocking as that may sound. Of course, we know that Bayern Munich won 1-0, and they are the champions, so congratulations to them. We will recap that game. And also, how should Knicks fans really feel about them picking 8th overall in the lottery? We'll discuss that in the next episode. For Neil Villapiano, I'm Jimmy Finizzi. This is the Bottom Line Podcast. See you in the next episode. Peace out.